Hello, I'm Jason Bainbridge, and you're on Smash the Ring. Coming up, Colonel Douglas McGregor on is the USA supplied enough in terms of weapons to sustain this war? Were the Iranians issuing a willingness to negotiate on their uranium enrichment program? After that, Scott Ritter discusses theologian killings and expands on the problem developing with the Gulf kingdoms and their lack of support from the US and on martyrdom. And finally, we go over Rick Sandres, who expands on the major issue which is now developing on the Gulf Kingdom area. This is Smash the Ring. Were they unprepared? And did the US president fall into Bibi's trap?
Your neighbor's a stranger, your brother's a foe, while the kings of the circus count the notes as they go, selling the conflict right down the line, pocketing truth for a cheaper lie. So we cut the wires to the microphone. This house of cards is coming down.
Okay, I just had my mic muted. Let's go again. Okay, here we are. I am Jason Bainbridge, and it only took me about a day to figure out that there was some problems surrounding this war, how we got into it, the preparation around it, who was leading it, and the reasons why. And we're going to get started right straight into it. And I'll play the clip, and then I'll give you my commentary, and then I'll play the clip, and then I'll give you more commentary. Let's go.
If we didn't, and by the way, we have massive amounts of ammunition. We have the high end. A lot of it was given away stupidly by Biden, very stupidly, for free. And I'm all for Ukraine, but they gave away a lot. As you know, when I give away ammunition, everybody pays for it. The European Union's paying for it. Then they can do what they want with it, but they are giving it, let's say, to Ukraine, and it's okay. But we gave away a lot of high end, but we have plenty. But we have unlimited middle and upper ammunition, which is really what we're using in this war. And we have really an unlimited supply. We also have a lot of the very high end stored in different countries throughout the world. We're literally storing it there, which is actually something that I insisted on in my first term. I rebuilt the military in my first term. The military is great. Unbelievable amount of ammunition or munitions, as they say, we're given away to, the Wall Street Journal incorrectly covered the story when they said that it was given away to the Middle East. Not to the Middle East, it was given away to Ukraine. Very little was given to the Middle East. Middle East would buy a lot, and some of the nations, because they're rich, they have a lot, but it was given away to Ukraine. And it just should have been done. Look, it's a war that should have never happened. If I were president, that war would have never happened. But we have a tremendous amount of munitions, ammunition, at the upper level, middle and upper level, all of which is really powerful stuff.
Hello, I'm Ginger. People use me when they're
You really like that comment, right? That if I if I were the president, that war would never happen. And it's the irony of that is that we're getting exactly that right here, right now. Sorry about the commercials. I've got to wait for them to finish and then skip them.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at that because he's addressing. There's two things that we were going to talk about. One of them we'll get to in a minute, but the second one, I'm glad he brought that up, and it's great timing on that, Gary. Is that there's this claim that, hey, we got to hurry up. We only have a couple of weeks. And I think you even mentioned you thought we had maybe a couple of weeks from like 2 or 3 weeks ago, that if we started this, we'd only have a couple of weeks at high intensity with these offensive, especially interceptor missiles, and we would have to get a resolution or we'd be in trouble. That's been reported in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, the Washington Post. Several people have been talking about that. Apparently, General Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, also warned about some of the risk that we go into. But now then here, President Trump yesterday and again live today says, yeah, you know what? Don't worry about that. I got plenty of ammunition. In fact, some categories are unlimited. What do you make of that?
Always keep in mind that President Trump, whatever else he may claim to be, is a marketing genius. He's someone who rose to prominence and became a billionaire because he's very good at marketing himself and whatever the product is that he's selling. And that's what he's doing in the Oval Office right now. Everyone I've talked to has said exactly what you just repeated. There is no evidence for the limitless supply of high-end missiles that he's talking about. But he can say it, and he will say it, because he's trying to sell a war. He's trying to convince everyone that we are winning and that we are going to win, although he's never really defined very clearly what that means. What we're implying from his remarks is that a win means the elimination of the Iranian government and its replacement with a puppet that Israel and the United States are comfortable with. I don't see much evidence that that's going to happen. And I don't see any evidence that his aspiration is going to be fulfilled. He's also, within the last couple of days, said that he's interviewing candidates for leadership in Iran. And some of them are, in his words, really good people. And this is in anticipation of him installing these puppets once this war ends, which he is making it sound like it's imminent. War is going to end. Somebody else put something out last night on X who said Israeli is on the verge of capitulation. This is all nonsense. And this is all marketing. And this is to boost support for something that a lot of people are asking questions about. So no, it's just forget it. Here's a little note for everybody. I've been receiving information from on the other side in Department of the Navy and others that are saying our destroyers at sea, these are the Aegis class destroyers, have fired remarkably small numbers of missiles. In fact, very few have fired missiles at all. Now, these are the standard missiles. They're designed as part of the Aegis system to shoot down incoming ballistic missiles. They also have strike missiles that they can fire to land on targets on land, and they haven't fired any Sea Sparrows. And I asked, well, this is very odd. Why is that the case? Because people are being told to guard their inventory carefully, to manage what they shoot, because we don't have inexhaustible supplies. And remember, you've got to go back to port somewhere to reload.
Major oversight, right? Major oversight. What he's saying is that their own military, their own army, the Navy, I guess they're talking about the Navy, their own military is saying that they don't have enough supply. They don't have enough missiles. And I'm going to expand on this over the next few days, but this is quite a concern. So it really shows a lack of preparation. And it also, there are other indicators that this was poorly prepared, especially when it comes to evacuating the foreign citizens and all the foreigners, especially the Americans and the expats that are living in in these Gulf areas that are now under attack. So this is quite a conundrum that they've developed here, and it shows that this really wasn't very well thought through, to be honest. And we're going to carry on to the next section where McGregor here actually discloses that there was quite a willingness to negotiate the enrichment program and have some checks and balances on this. And clearly the U.S. Ignored them and went ahead with their strike. Now, I want to make this kind of clear. I know that there's an argument in the background about, like, what about all the people, the 30,000 that were killed and all that sort of. What about the Muslim role? I understand all of that, but if you're going to do a regime change, you should at least be straightforward and upcoming about it. If you're going to manipulate and lie about it, it's not going to take long for people to find out, and then you lose credibility. You see, very fast this could turn. And this is what I was saying on yesterday's podcast, that one wrong move, one small thing could turn this whole thing around. And now we're seeing a recipe here that could turn this around. It looks like their stroke of luck is running out. The Gulf countries are also lacking in supplies as well. So anyway, but I'll summarize as I get to the end. Let's carry on with this.
We were forced into this by those bad negotiators from Iran.
They thought they could strong arm us. You know, President Trump sent me and Jared there to really determine on his behalf whether they were serious about doing a deal that addressed his objectives, which are elimination of their missile program, elimination of their advocacy and support for proxies, which is destabilizing the entire Middle East, elimination of their Navy so we can have freedom of the seas and not be threatened with the shutdown of the Gulf of Hormuz. And finally, no nuclear enrichment that can get them to weapons grade, which means no nuclear bomb. And we went in there and tried to make a fair deal with them. And it was very, very clear that it was going to be impossible, probably by the end of the second meeting. But we then went back for the third meeting just to give it the last college try. And of course, they thought they wanted us to report positivity. It was not positive, that meeting.
TradingView is turning 15, which means it's time for gifts. Thousands of users have already received free.
So look, to summarize, all we were asking, we're good guys here. We're giving it that old college try. All we're asking them is to get rid of their Navy, get rid of their missile forces, get rid of any kind of nuclear processing, and just completely lay down and do everything we ask. And we gave them a fair deal. Does such a fair deal even exist, Doug?
No, it's absurd. In other words, surrender your sovereignty, turn over your country to Israel and whatever Israel wants to do with it. In other words, unilaterally disarm so that not only do you not present a threat to Israel, but Israel can present a permanent threat to you and essentially determine the future of your country. Let's go back to some data points. Data point number one, Luke Groman, who's a very fine financial analyst. I encourage people to listen to him. He was on recently and he pointed out that every day, every 24-hour period in a day, the Chinese and their manufacturing base can produce 1,000 motors for cruise missiles. We didn't say for all missiles. We just said for cruise missiles, 1,000 a day. We are hard pressed to produce 100 missiles a month. Now, if you can produce 1,000 rocket motors for cruise missiles every day, how many missiles can China produce? And in addition to that, how many of these are already sitting underground in Iran waiting to be launched? And how many more can be introduced into Iran to ensure that Iran continues to launch missiles? I think it's pretty obvious. So let's just keep that in mind. This war is not going to end anytime soon. Secondly, there was no deal on offer. The whole business about ballistic missiles was dead on arrival. The business about proxies was dead on arrival. That everybody knew that from the beginning. The one thing on which the Iranians were prepared to talk to us was, of course, the no enrichment of uranium. They want to enrich a certain quantity to a certain percentage. They were willing to negotiate that issue. And I guess Witkoff and Kushner, as experienced real estate negotiators, conveyed the impression that they were actually interested in talking about that when they never were. We know now that the decision, and this is something I've said for months, and people have not wanted to believe it. I said it back in September. I said it in August, July of last year. This war is not over, and we will attack Iran. It's only a matter of time.
So you can see that the problem here looks like that, which is fast developing, unless the U.S. military, the government has some secret stash of additional weapons somewhere that you can see. Just, you know, as an example, the Chinese can manufacture engines at 1,000 a day, whereas they're very lucky if the U.S. can do 100 a month. So this is quite a problem here, and this is, I think this is the beginning of that problem. This is key to where the Gulf kingdoms that are now involved in this, which didn't really want to be involved in this, okay, now they're forced to protect their own territory and they're forced to take action, but the US doesn't have the supplies to offer them. So, and I was saying in yesterday's podcast when I was talking with Rosie Convoy that this could be, there could be a problem that could pivot all the focus away from Iran and straight back onto Israel on the US. And this could potentially be it. Let's carry on.
Remember, you and I talked about that. I thought it would happen before Christmas, probably November, December. Apparently, it wasn't ideal from a timing standpoint. Then January came along and it looked like something was going to happen. Well, we finally got the war. Okay. Now people are calling it the Purim war because of its coincidence with the Purim festival in Israel. Bottom line is, this was always going to happen. The negotiations were an empty facade. Witkoff and Kushner report to Netanyahu. That doesn't mean they don't keep Mr. Trump informed, but ultimately Mr. Trump is reporting to Mr. Netanyahu. I mean, this is ridiculous. The whole thing is theater. And I don't think anybody should bother believing anything that Witkoff, Kushner, and anybody else in the White House inner circle says at this point. And as you just demonstrated with President Trump, you might as well stop listening to anything he says because it's not rooted in facts. It has no basis in reality. Now, either President Trump knows that, and for the reasons I mentioned earlier, he says what he says, just as Witkoff says what he says. He's trying to string along the American people and keep them on board, he thinks, for this war, or he's lost touch with reality.
That could possibly be the issue. I'm wondering myself, definitely, I'll give you a little bit of background about myself. I got into this whole issue of the global elite and the deep state and all of this many years ago. I saw 911 live on TV when I was living in Japan. I was at the first 911 Truth Conference. I listened to Alex Jones, David Icke, way back then when they first started out, right? It's now 2026. And so we're going back to 2023, 2024, the start of the internet. So I'm kind of aware of all of this stuff. So, and we've always known that Israel has been very problematic in this. And it's been known for a long time that Benjamin Netanyahu has wanted to basically control the whole region. I'm not going to get into the religious stuff, okay, and prophecies and all this kind of stuff. I'm just going to say that he has been trying to get hold of all of the Middle East to expand the Greater Israel Project, and this has always been his goal for great control over the area, to the Rothschilds owned the state of Israel. So Bibi Netanyahu leading him along, whether it was real or not, whether he knew or he didn't know. He's now got himself into a situation, and this could seriously backfire. It could seriously backfire on them. So we're going over now to Scott Ritter, and he's with Judge Napolitano from the TV show. I don't know what it was. Anyway, it's a TV show. He's now got a podcast called Judging Freedom. So let's go over there and see what he has to say about this. And he's going to go on a slightly different angle, and he's going to talk about the power of martyrdom and what has now happened. And I'll expand on that on the last series of videos. So let's go into the theologian killings with Scott Ritter. Let's make sure that I am back down at the bottom here. And we go.
The United States is stripping bare its Pacific front. And where are they sending these missiles? Not to the Gulf Arab states, to Israel. And this is the ultimate insult, because these Gulf Arab states who were told that America is their true friend, their true ally, are finding out the reality that the only true friend and ally the United States has is Israel. And the United States will abandon everybody else. And this is going to create political problems for the president down the road.
Just about an hour before we began our conversation here, Scott, the president was asked in the Oval Office, what's the worst case scenario? It took him a while to come up with an answer, but during the course of it, he made some comments in which he revealed his understanding of how the war is going. I'm smiling because you can imagine what he says, but I would like your thoughts on this. Chris, cut number 27.
President, what's the worst case scenario that you have planned for in Iran?
Well, I don't know if there's a worst case. We have them very much beaten militarily from the military standpoint. They're still lobbing some missiles. At some point, they won't even be able to do that because we're hitting all of their carriers. We're hitting all of their missile stock. You know, they built up all these missiles over the last few years. They had a lot of them. They've shot a lot of them, and we're knocking out a lot. I guess the worst case would be we do this, and then somebody takes over who's as bad as the previous person, right? That could happen. We don't want that to happen. It would probably be the worst. You go through this, and then in 5 years, you realize you put somebody in who was no better.
This AI tool is better than 11 labs for one-time cost.
Right, so now we're getting into the very dark, murky area of why did this start, right? So if you're not if you're not caught up yet, this is what happened. So Benjamin Netanyahu told Trump that they were going to attack, Israel was going to attack Iran on a certain time and day. And following that, Trump decided that it was going to be bad for America because if Israel did it, then they would attack America. So what Trump decided to do was to do a preemptive attack and try and get in front of Benjamin Netanyahu. It's the most insane thing that you could possibly do. This is a really big gamble, what these guys are doing. So, and they all did not expect Iran to react the way they did by attacking everybody in the Gulf area with an American army base. Nobody expected that. And so at this point, it looks like Iran it's war of attrition. They're not even using their most powerful missiles. They're basically sending out decoys to let the Americans and the Gulf states just deplete their supplies of missiles through defensive actions. It's pure genius, to be honest. Again, I have a very different opinion. I have a very different opinion about the Republic and their rules and regulations and all that kind of stuff. And and the theological beliefs that they have. I'm talking purely strategy, purely legitimacy in terms of how the Americans and Israel have handled and presented themselves, and especially the propaganda that they're putting out there in the media. Like, it's so positive, and they've been trying to spin. So it's very interesting. And again, I don't think it's got that much to do with the Epstein files. I'll get into that into another video. This is absolutely crazy. Let's carry on.
Have an accurate or realistic grasp on the state of hostilities over there?
No. Again, I mean, I say no. I don't have access to the intelligence, but what I can say is this, that the Iranians have been preparing for this very fight for 20 years. And the notion, I just want to remind people in the audience, because I know I'm not supposed to read the comments, but every once in a while I glimpse at it. And I see some people who are repeating some of the Israeli propaganda where the Israelis say that they've taken Iran down to their last 12 launchers. Well, count the number of missiles that are fired from Iran, and I guarantee you it's more than 12. So right off the bat, that math doesn't work. But, when I was in the Gulf Desert Storm, we were trying to, interdict Iraq's ability to fire missiles into Israel and Saudi Arabia. We had assessed that Iraq had 19 mobile launchers. By the end of the first week and a half, we had destroyed 64. Yes, you heard me, 64, which means we weren't destroying mobile launchers because, first of all, the Iraqis continued to fire high volumes of missiles, indicating there was no meaningful intervention. The fog of war is absolute. You always have military people who believe they're accomplishing more than they're actually accomplishing. And for political reasons, they tend to produce reports that are designed to appease their political masters. Not
So there you have it. So we have primarily looking at a war built on propaganda at this point. Let's go back to, I think I missed something here, right about here. Let's go back to that. I missed that.
You said, and we Iraqis are really good at pouring concrete. But the difference is that when you blow up a building, it's empty. And when our concrete cures, we put the material back in and we're right back to where we started. You have accomplished nothing. And I'm here to tell you right now, this campaign is just making things worse. I will say this. We did bomb a site today that is going to have strategic, as perhaps even greater strategic consequence than killing Ali Khamenei. Today, the 88-member Assembly of Experts met in Qom. The Assembly of Experts is a democratically elected body of theologians and people whose job it is to monitor the work of the Supreme Leader, and when the Supreme Leader is no longer there, to replace him. And they were voting on a new Supreme Leader today when either Israel, the United States, or both bombed the building. We don't know the fate of this assembly, but I can tell you this. If you want to encourage Iran to produce a nuclear weapon, bomb the Assembly of Experts as they pick the next Supreme Leader. Iran has openly said that they retained 450 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium. We don't know where it is. Iran has probably also sequestered at least one, perhaps more, 164 centrifuge cascades, which they can use to turn that 60% into 92, 94%. And we know that Iran has claimed that they had everything necessary to build a warhead capable of delivering a nuclear weapon on one of their missiles, minus the fissile core. If we want to have a nuclear war with Iran, we're pretty much guaranteeing that outcome because we killed the one man who said no to a nuclear weapon, Ali Khamenei. He's the one who issued 2 fatwas that said Iran will not pursue these under any circumstance. He's now dead. Theologian who sits on the 3-person council that replaced him is a man who was openly articulated in favor of a nuclear weapon. Now, he could have been held back, restrained by the Assembly of Experts, who could have elected a new Supreme Leader who shared the thinking of Ali Khamenei, but they've been killed.
Okay, so essentially this means negotiating. What he's trying to say is like negotiate, keep the regime in power. That's essentially what he's saying. And I'm not here to say keep him in power or not keep him in power. I'm just simply saying that this could have been an option. It could have been an option. Whether or not the claims of the 30,000 people that were genocide, massacred during the protest, whether or not that's true or not, again, it's media. Unless we actually know somebody personally that was there. There are a lot of organizations. Mossad was caught yesterday in 2 Gulf states planting bombs and arrested for attempting to cause havoc. So meddling in the background, the usual suspects. Okay. So we're going to go on to the last section with Scott Ritter. And we'll just scoop that up there. Going to go all the way down to there. And we're just going to get him to finish up on martyrdom, and then over to Rick Sanchez and talk about the real major issues in more detail about this problem with martyrdom, what they've created and they could have avoided.
TradingView is turning 15,
Just,
which means it's time for gift.
Get rid of this commercials. I don't have premium, sorry. Okay. No,
With Madison's writing and the writing of all the people who wrote not only the Federalist Papers, but the Anti-Federalist Papers, because the Anti-Federalist Papers gave us the Bill of Rights. But most Americans are unfamiliar with that because most Americans are unfamiliar with the Constitution, and therefore most Americans remain, silent in the face of the absolute collapse of what America is supposed to be. This president has lied to us from the very beginning. This were going to attack, and therefore we knew that if Israel attacked, Iran would respond by attacking us, so we had to preempt the Iranian response to the Israeli attack. But he lied, because the decision for this war was made when Benjamin Netanyahu came to the United States. You might recall that we were talking about a potential divide between Israel and the United States, and I said there is no divide, that the United States and Israel have one mind. The president has agreed to execute this attack against Iran, and that the date was set, because I've talked about the flow of logistics. It creates its own momentum that cannot be ignored. So they pointed on the map and they said, this is the day we're going to bomb. And then the president, right after Netanyahu left, immediately initiated diplomatic outreach. And the purpose of Witkoff and Kushner was to create a diplomatic front that could buy time until the day of the bombing began. And once again, we've committed an act of perfidy, hiding behind a white flag of diplomacy in order to shield a surprise attack, a stab in the back. This is a regime change operation that's promulgated on lies, the lies of an Iranian nuclear threat. We know Tulsi Gabbard said there is no Iranian nuclear threat. One of the reasons why she articulated that was because she knew the stance taken by Ali Khamenei in his 2 fatwas. But we also know that the Iranians signed a deal, were ready to sign a deal that gave up any potential of them possessing a nuclear weapon. That 450 kilograms of 60% enriched uranium was put on the table, promising to be diluted down under the supervision of not just the IAEA inspectors, but American inspectors. The Iranians agreed to allow American inspectors back in, something that they have never allowed. So the Iranians bent over backwards to do everything necessary to ensure that they would verifiably not be able to pursue a nuclear weapons program in perpetuity. There were no sunset clauses. There were nothing. That was the end of it. So if this was about Iran's nuclear weapons, then we clearly, or potential for nuclear weapons, we clearly had a solution. No, this was about regime change. That's all it was about, and we have failed. We failed the first 6 missiles that hit Tehran. When we murdered Ali Khamenei and his 14-month-old granddaughter, we sealed our own fate, because we guaranteed that the people of Iran would rally. Look at the streets of Iran now, filled with mourners, millions of mourners, mourning the loss of a man who they view as a martyr now. And when we speak of the Shia faith, I know Donald Trump doesn't know anything about Shiism. He doesn't know anything about what 12 faction of Shiism. He doesn't know who Ali is. He doesn't know who Hassan is. He doesn't know who Hussein is. He doesn't know what the Battle of Karbala is. But Ali Khamenei now is revered as a martyr, as a saint, along line with Ali, Hassan, Hussein. And these deeply religious people who populate the Islamic Republic of Iran will now die for this cause.
The whole world.
And there you go. That's what it's created. They will literally die. So it's now jihad. So because of that, it's we're going to get into more of that about the majority of Shia. We're going to get into that right now. But yeah, this is kind of a little bit disturbing how this was handled, actually, to be honest. It didn't really take long for the cracks to develop. So let's go over now the last video here today. We're going to be listening to Rick Sanchez and his 83,000 subscribers. And he's got some pretty interesting points here. So 60, 47, 1750. I get him to go over there. Okay. Let's check it out.
Not and hate them for it. Exactly. They're in a bit of a quandary, aren't they? Oh, yes, yes. We may be seeing a lot of these governments fall. Look, Bahrain is already in the middle of a revolt. Of course, the people are cheerleading as they're watching. See the videos. We just showed them a little while ago. There was one video where you could see all the missiles launching off from Iran from Bahrain, because this is very close. You could see them flying up into the sky, and the people were celebrating. Now they're revolting because 80% of them are Shia. I guess the 20% minority that's backed by the U.S. that lords over them, while they're not exactly the richest country in the world. It's a rich country for the 20% above, the Sunni 20%.
Yeah, no, I've been there.
So this was
There's a lot of workers that come from other places, and they tend to be Muslim as well, and many of them Shia Muslims.
right.
Yeah.
So we could be looking at the Bahrain government collapsing. We could be looking at UAE having issues. Qatar collapsing.
Let's go to Saudi Arabia once again, because I'm just told now that there's a Saudi Arabian officials who's made a statement similar to what you were saying a little while ago about what's going on right now in Saudi Arabia. And here it is. Let's take a listen.
Today, the Gulf states, led by Saudi Arabia, have been drawn into a war they neither wanted, decided upon, nor participated in. Furthermore, American defense is focused on Israel, neglecting the Gulf states, despite the presence of numerous American military bases. Undoubtedly, I believe there is a degree of Gulf resentment toward their ally, or partner to be more precise, the United States, which prioritizes Israel's security, stability, and population without addressing the defense needs of the Arab Gulf states. These states are currently facing Iranian attacks without any American intervention.
So you hear what he's saying, right?
Yeah.
He's saying he kind of feels like he's somewhat been abandoned by the United States. They thought the United States was going to have their back, but now they're seeing, or he seems to be accusing the.
And this is what I was saying yesterday in the podcast, that one wrong move, one very fundamental wrong move, and this is it. And it was actually in the beginning, it seems, that this has been fatally flawed from the beginning. And this could be the pivot. This could see everything turn around. No more focus on Iran. They may actually start to have empathy for Iran and put all their focuses back on Israel. Gog and Magog, perhaps. Who knows? I really wanted to have a discussion about this biblically yesterday, but our guest didn't arrive. So, yeah, if you've got some insight into that, I don't have a lot of insight into that, but if you've got some insight into the Gog and Magog, send me a message on Facebook or join our group down the bottom, and then you can private message me. I'll put the link down below very soon. Actually, before we do that, let's just quickly go over to our group here, and I will give you, you can take a look. Facebook's going to open up. So this is our group here, Global Checkpoint. This is one of the smaller groups. We have I have a lot of different groups. This is our small, it's a very new group. So it's only got 197 members compared to one of the other groups, which has 23,000 members. So, and here you can see all the stories that I'm following here on Global Checkpoint News and Stop World War III, right? So we'll just go there and you can see the address there, right? groups.global checkpoint. There you go, global checkpoint. So yeah, welcome to join the group. If you have any insight on Gog and Magog, send me a message on Facebook, and we'll talk about it. Let's go back and carry on with this.
The United States of putting all of its defensive interests in Israel and the hell with the Gulf states, including Saudi Arabia. That's what I heard him say.
Exactly. But there's another issue here. They all want to pretend that the United States is all powerful. They don't want to know reality. Everybody's been telling them. Everybody is in the know, and if they've listened to them, myself, many experts, other experts, the U.S. is not capable of defending all of you. The U.S. has limited resources. The U.S. may talk a good game, but when smoke clears, and they're finding out the smoke's clearing and they're at the bottom. They're not as important. There's not enough assets to go around, and those assets are going to Israel.
Two more questions. First, from a military standpoint, when the leadership of a country is decimated, like we understand just happened in Iran, how does that affect the military? How does it affect the guys on the ground? Do they sense it, or do they just say next man up kind of thing?
Well, it depends on the state of the discipline of the military. It depends on the depth of training. With a lot of Arab countries, the problem is they do fall apart because the Arab leaders are afraid of their generals. Two generals together in one room is considered a conspiracy. The Iranians have a culture that goes back 3,000 years. They're a civilization state. They have in-depth and width. So you take...
And this is it. And this is actually something that I've been hearing about the Iranian culture going back 3,000 years. I'm going to get into that possibly tomorrow. I've got some things to do in the next couple of days. So I may end up doing a very late evening live stream. I may even stop promoting the live stream so I can do it in my own time, and I'll just post it once it's gone out live. But that's it for now. We're running out of time. I'm Jason Bainbridge. This has been State of the Nations Smash the Ring, and yeah, it's pretty sad set of circumstances that's taking place now. So, well, let's see what's happening in the next couple of days. And for now, I'm out of here.
Your neighbor's a stranger, your brother's a foe, while the kings of the circus count the notes as they go, selling the conflict right down the line, pocketing truth for cheap.